Buenas, hello. How are you doing? All good?
Hello,
Heidi.
Rafa. So when you were young, what training methodology do you remember having the greatest impact on your development, like life ball, basket feeding, or tactical situations? And why do you think it was so decisive?
I think everything that you do can have a positive impact on your development as a player. You can play a lot of time from the baseline and can be very useful or not, depending how you approach this baseline hitting. You can do drills and can be very useful or not, depending on your attitude and depending about how you manage to work with the drills. From my point of view, there is no one way to have success. There are many ways, because if not, everyone will follow the same way, and everyone has a different talent. Everyone has a different mentality. Everyone has a different understanding on the game, and not because you have different understandings, you have less possibilities to be successful. So you need to find your way, and sometimes not. A few things, yes. Of course, there are things in tennis that works for everyone, but another specific things, what works for you maybe don't work for me. So it's about having the flexibility for the coaches to find the way that you need to practice to be better. Of course, there is a basic things then you need to repeat, because for everybody is similar. No? So the rest of the things you can play with it. I really believe that the way that I grow was not something 100% methodic and specific, because we were in a different timings. We have to be in perspective that that was like 25 or 30 years ago. We didn't had at that moment all the knowledge that we have today. We didn't have as much technology as we have today. And today, like we have here in the academy, you have physiotherapists, you have nutritionists, you have psychologists. When I was growing, I was not able to have all these kind of things. So you have physical trainers. So, in my way of practicing, I was adding that later on my career. At the beginning was just coach and myself. And of course, I would love to have all the things that you have if you use it the proper way. So I was able to follow the instructions of my coach most of the time. And at the end, it's about belief on the people who are next to you, because that people wants the best thing for you, and trust in them, trust on the practices that they prepare for you, because at the end of the day, when they leave the court, they think about what you need to do to be better the next day. So sometimes it's not funny. Sometimes you want to play matches and you do some drills, and the drills sometimes are more boring than playing matches. But at the end, in this life, it's not always about having fun and do the things that we want to do. If we want to grow in every single aspect, sometimes we need to do things that we don't like that much. And not because we don't like that much these things, we lose the intensity and the passion on doing that kind of things. And that's something that I think I did it very well.
Hello, Rafa.
Hello, Rina.
So you've always been recognized for your movement, your footwork, and your mobility on the court. So what exercises or routines were key in improving your agility, your coordination, and position from a young age?
What you do on the gym, what you do on the exercises with the physical trainers, with the coach, and in a specific movements that works to try to find the perfection on the way that you go to the ball. But why I was very good on the movement, especially at the beginning of my career, before having all the injuries that I had, I tell you why, and it's a very simple thing. And that works for everyone. I was very good on that because when I was practicing, I was just hitting balls from the baseline, one against the other. I was running for every ball. I was practicing with very high intensity. Even if the ball was 15 meters away, It's not like the opponent makes a mistake and the ball goes out and I don't go for it. I was going for every ball. And that, at the end, affects on the way that you react on the matches. And that's affect on the way that how you learn to put that ball in back on court. Even if that ball is very far, the way that you learn on running to that ball and trying to approach that ball in terms how you put your legs in that ball makes a big difference. And today, sometimes I see you guys or some players on the professional tour that they are practicing, and when the opponent is missing the ball, they don't run for the ball. And that's a big mistake, because that makes the biggest difference. Because the specific things is about trying to improve that specific things that you need to improve. But overall, what makes the biggest difference is about the intensity that you put in every single shot and in every single practice. And that demonstrates how awake mentally and physically you are, that even when the opponent is making a mistake, you run for the ball. Sometimes you don't want to pick that ball, but that reaction or trying to go for that ball makes a big difference on being reactive, being faster, and have automatically interiorized the way that you need to go for the ball. What is Leo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Rafa. My question for you is, which shot or shots would you say took the most time to perfect in your career? And how did you approach the technical process to master them?
A few of them, some for everyone. As I think everyone has challenges on perfection, different shots. For one is the serve, for another is the forehand, for another is the backhand, for another is the volley. And my biggest challenges have been the serve, that we were always trying to change techniques. And if you see in YouTube that today is very easy, not when I was a kid, to see it, how I changed my serve over the years. I tried so many different styles. Why? Because I was not able to find the serve that I needed to be as good as I would like to be, you know. And I was always ready to try things and to try different things to be better. And that's something that sometimes was not comfortable for me. But I accept that uncomfortable things to try to be better. So I accept the challenge, I accept the feel that when you do new things or when you try new things, of course, the thing's not going to work well immediately, going to take time, going to take effort, and going to take some mental damage. But if you want to be successful, not only in tennis, in anything in life, you need to go over that pain mentally and sometimes physically, you know, because that's the way that things work in this life. Nobody achieved the personal limits without going through this process. So for me, the serve was a big challenge. The volley was a challenge at the beginning of my career. The slice backhand was a challenge. But I was always ready to learn from the others, to try to copy from other players what they did better than me, and to listen to coaches, to be honest. I was a good learner in terms of I was always ready to listen and follow what the people next to me told me, and at least try, but not try 2 times and if the things were not working, okay, that's not working, no. Try the proper way, give myself chances to improve. And I think that makes the difference on have a very long career and of being a player that during my career I was able to improve myself, improve my volley, and improve the things that I was not that good at the beginning of my career. When I was young, for example, I was very fast. Then I got some injuries, I went through all this process, so I lost the speed on my movement. So I need to add things in my game. So it's about when you are getting older, you lose things. If you want to keep being competitive at the highest level, when you're losing a few things, you need to add another things that maintains the level that high, and that's what we did.
When you made the transition from junior or semi-professional tennis to the ATP level, what major changes did you have to make in your training in order to compete successfully against the best players in the world?
Not for everyone is the same, because my challenge was that I did that at a very, very young age. I was 15, 16 when that happened. When I arrived to the professional tour and played in the tour, that was my diary basis. Playing on the professional tour was 16. Of course, I went through that process that in a lower level, I was able to control the point, to dominate points, to feel myself in control. And then I arrived to the tour, and I need to deal with players that I was not able to control the match anymore. I was not able to dominate the points anymore in general terms, and I was playing against players that physically were much more prepared than me, because I was a kid. No? So when I was a kid, don't think that I was playing the forehand like this. You know, I started playing the forehand like this because when I arrived on the tour, I need to do some adjustments, because I had less power than the others. And some of these things that I needed to challenge when I was a small kid arriving to the tour stayed with me. You know, the positive and the negative thing of arriving to the tour in a very early age is the positive thing, of course, is because you are good, that you are able to be on the tour and achieve a very positive ranking, to play against the opponents much older than you and better than you in that age. But the negative point too is when you arrive at that very early age, sometimes your body is not 100% ready to play against all these players. So I was a very competitive player, competitive guy, so I always was looking for solutions to keep being competitive, even against players that were better than me, and older and more prepared physically. No? So I was adjusting my game to all these factors. No? So tennis is not a methodic game. Some things, yes. Other things, you need to be flexible, and you need to have an open mind to make decisions of changing things and adapting your game and your technique to any condition. No? And at the end, it's a process. You need to go through that process. And of course, a couple of things that happens on the juniors don't happen on the professional tour. And you need to go through this process of adapting your mentality, your game, and your movements to that next step. But if you have the right preparation, the right base, it's a process that can go in a few months or can take a few years. Every player reacts in a different way.
You've always been recognized for your mental strength and competitive spirit against your direct rivals. How did your process develop, and what tools did you use in your early years to stay focused and manage pressure during key moments of matches?
Well, it's a few things. It's about related. At the end, it's related about education, first of all, about formation and values. At the end of the day, these three things helps you to go through that process, competitive process of accepting the challenges of playing against the best players of the world and to face the biggest rivals possible. No? First of all, from my point of view, ego. Ego is a word that can create damage, a lot of damage on people, because if you have a very strong ego, going to be difficult sometimes to accept that you have to be better and better and better because you consider yourself too good too early. That's related to the other word, that is be humble enough to accept that you need to work every day to be better in every single aspect if you want to try to be at your highest level possible and to face the best players in the world with chances of having success. Some people are going to tell you it's so important to believe in yourself. Yes, true. It's so important to believe in yourself, and especially on the work that you are able to put together every single day. Believe in yourself, from my point of view, is not believe that you are good enough to compete against the best players. Believe in yourself is trust that if you work the proper way and you have the right preparation, then you're going to have real chances to be ready to compete against the best players of the world. People say too that it's so important to learn from the matches that you lose. And it's true, but it's much easier to learn from the matches that you win. People who need to lose to learn from that matches are people who has, for me, from my point of view, a dismeasured ego. Because you need to lose to know that some things you are not doing enough well. When you are humble enough and have this, be self-critic enough with yourself, you are able to recognize the things that you need to improve, the things that you need to work, even when you are winning. Because you are humble enough to say, okay, I won, but I need to improve this. I don't consider myself too good. And I tell you one thing, it's much easier to improve with victories than with losses. Why? With victories, you have confidence. With victories, you have the calm of trying things. But with the losses, you have less confidence because you lost. You have less trust in yourself because in some way you lost a little bit of confidence. So if you are able to be humble enough to recognize the things that you need to improve when you are winning, your process of improvement is going to be much faster and better from my point of view. Of course, with the people who are not humble enough, then they have to lose a lot to recognize that they are not good enough.
My question is, what do you think when you feel not good in the match?
That I need to win that match? Yeah. Because winning matches when you are not feeling that way, that well, that's what the best players do. I think one of the most important things in the careers of tennis players is how many matches you are able to win when you are not playing that well or when you don't feel that way. Because when you are playing very well, normal thing is that you're going to win or you're going to lose depending against who you play, but you have a good chances to win. What makes a huge difference at the end of your career is how many matches you were able to win when you were not playing that well. Why? In tennis, it's not like other sports. Tennis is like every day you have a match if you win. If you lose, you come back home and you go to the next tournament. During the tournaments, the best players of the world, Djokovic, Federer, Alcaraz, Sinner, a lot of these players, I can put my personal example. I won plenty of tournaments, starting the tournament playing terrible. But I was humble enough to accept that and to fight with the tools that I had that day. And that day I need to go through that round, sometimes against a player that I was able to win, even without playing at my 100%, but having the right spirit, the right attitude, and be humble enough to play with the things that I had that day. And that's our sport. Survive and compete well when you are not feeling that well, because that gives you the chance to play better the other day. And most of the times, the next day you're going to play better. Why? Because you already won a match. And when you already won a match, the next day you're going to be under better self-confidence. And the feelings immediately goes better. If you lose that match, that can happen, no problem. But give yourself a chance. Because if you tank that match or you don't put your 100% intensity on that match because you are not feeling that well, you go back home and you need to start again all the process of recovering from a lose, building the confidence again, and trying to recover your game for the next week that's gonna be 7 days in the middle most of the time. If you are able to go through and win that match, that makes overall a big difference. So sometimes you don't want to win that match, but at least you need to give yourself a chance, a real chance. And to give yourself a real chance is compete at your highest level possible that day and give yourself the chance to go through, because that's gonna create a big impact on your career. And that's probably the biggest difference between a very good player or the best players.
What do you think, or what comes to your mind after winning or losing a single point at that moment?
Not every point has the same value, to be honest. It's not the same losing a point when you are 40 love up or when you are 30 old. So that's tennis, and the moment counts. But if you start practicing, trying to do your best in every single point, doesn't matter what the result is, that's going to create an amazing positive impact on how you react after these points that you lose. And at the end, even the best players have just a small percentage of points winning over losing. I don't know, it's 55 against 45% on something like this overall the career. So the best players, some of the best players of the history have this percentage. Tennis is a sport that you need to deal with mistakes. You need to deal with winners of the others. It's about how you accept all these things. And that's why when you are practicing, when you are missing a ball or when the opponent is hitting a winner or an ace, it's about how frustrated you go. If you go over frustrated or you go frustrated because the opponent is doing very well, or because you're having mistakes, then going to be very difficult to deal with the next point. So that's something that you need to practice in a diary basis, not on the matches, on the practices. So if you are able to be humble enough to accept the mistakes and not be frustrated, because when you don't accept the mistakes, it's because you consider yourself too good. And when you are making mistakes, it's because you are not that good. And you can't consider yourself too good when Alcaraz is making, I don't know how many enforced errors per match. How you cannot do enforced errors if you are nobody. I don't say you, I say anyone. And that's when I was a kid. So it's about how you deal with all this frustration, how you manage your mentality when the opponent is playing well or when you are having mistakes. And that's a thing that going to make a big difference. Tennis is a sport of mistakes, and you need to deal with that and accept that. And what happened in that point, to be successful, can't affect you too much to the next point.
Looking back, now that you're a father and think about your children's introduction to sports, what do you consider was most important in your development between the ages of 4 and 10 to ensure your growth both as a player and as a person?
The introduction is about, in some way, creating passion on the kids. If the kids don't feel the passion for the sport, don't love the sport, don't really feel it, the sport, it's impossible. You need to just practice a sport for fun. And that's so important. Doesn't matter if you only do it for fun, because being around the world of a sport, I think it's positive. It's positive for growing with the positive values, for a lot of learnings that the sports gives to you. And not everyone have the mentality of trying to become as good as possible in sports. That's why not everybody loves sports. But in some way, it's healthy to practice a sport. For me personally, it's important that the kids feel the passion for the sport in general. And my personal example is my father was not a person that practiced a lot of sports, but he was very, very passionate about sports as a fan. So in some way, I get that passion, And if you ask me about how to introduce my son to the sports, I say I want to show him the passion for the sport. Then we're going to see it if he has the talent or if he likes enough to keep going. But at least I want him to be passionate about about the sport in general, because I believe it's a healthy world. It's a world that brings you to a positive atmospheres around, and be around the world of a sport. Normally, you are in a healthy atmosphere of people. So that's I think is so important for the development of the kids. And between 4 and 10, I always say the same. Most important thing is have fun playing the sport that you are playing. Doesn't matter, football, tennis, basketball, any sport. I think the kids need to have fun. Then after the age of 11, 12, I mean, you're going to start being a little bit more intense on practices, but that doesn't mean that with the age of 7 or 8, you don't need to be intense. Of course, you can be intense, but you're going to be intense by yourself if you really like it and if you really are passionate about what you're doing. That's my point of view.
Nowadays, technology, data analysis, video, biomechanics, physical preparation and recovery equipment is an essential part of tennis. If you had access to these tools during your childhood, what do you think would have developed earlier or more quickly in your game?
I think in some way the technology, it's important because at the end it's about the modern world, and you can't go against all the improvements, you know. So technology helps to do your video analysis, helps you to analyze after the match or after the practices what you did well, what you didn't did well. And I didn't grow with that technology. I grew it more about when I was a kid, more about feelings, more about trusting what the people next to you was telling me. And to be honest, the eyes from the people around you watch the things much better than your eyes watching yourself about what you're doing. So that's important too. That's why I think it's so important to trust the people who are next to you and wants the best for you. Because sometimes the feeling that we have as a player is not exactly accurate. And that's why it's important to trust the people who are next to you that have a little bit colder feeling about what you are doing or what you are not doing well. The video analysis helps to demonstrate that kind of things. And when I was a kid, I didn't have a camera in my phone that I can follow the improvement on the pace or on the movement of myself. But later in my career, I was able, when I wanted to change myself, for example, and to improve myself later in my career, to try to make the point shorter, I was able to see after every serve if I was doing the thing that my coach was telling me. And that's a useful tool to work with. But of course, at the end, you can't waste too much time about technology. The technology needs to be a tool of help. You can't replace the real practice for the technology. And sometimes the technology can make you feel a little bit lost on losing the perspective and the focus on what really matters. That is sometimes, or the most of the time, the feeling that you have when you are hitting the ball. But I think it's a tool that helps you to demonstrate some specific things that can make a difference.
Looking back at everything you have achieved, how has your definition of success changed from when you were starting out to now?
The most important success is the personal satisfaction that you have when you know that you give your best. And it's not about trophies, it's not about titles. It's about the personal feeling of trying every single day, because that gives you a much better and higher personal satisfaction than any trophy. And I tell you one thing, trophies at the end are only trophies. You know, the feelings that you have stays forever. Trophies, of course, stays forever. Are there in the museum? Yeah, right. So good. I'm proud of it, but I am proud of it because I had to work a lot to achieve that. If I didn't have to go all this process of working hard, accepting the challenges, going through all these injuries, all these tough moments, all these moments that sometimes the things are not going the proper way, but I was able to keep going, to keep trusting on the people next to me, to keep accepting all the things that I had in front and try to overcome them. At the end, the trophies are only trophies. What makes the trophies important is all the things that you had to do to achieve that trophies. And not everyone can achieve that trophies. I was fortunate that I had a special talent and a special positive atmosphere and team and environment around me. But the trophies for everyone at the end is the personal satisfaction of trying your best every single day. Because if you really try your best in every single day, maybe you don't want to become Grand Slam champion or Master 1000 champion or even a 215 champion, doesn't matter. But you're going to be a champion in your life and you're going to find your way to be successful in different part of life. And that's for sure the biggest personal satisfaction that you can achieve more than any real title.
Hi, Rafa. When you trained as a child in Club Tennis Manacor, being a small club with players of different ages and levels on the court, how do you remember that Tony, and in this case, the other coaches, assistants, managed the groups, and how did they manage to maintain the intensity and learning in every training session?
When you are a small kid, it's very difficult to hold the intensity, I think, because most of us at the beginning, you just go there for having fun, for spending 1-2 hours on the club and just had some good time with other friends, no? So we can't talk about real practices in some cases, no? In a group with a little bit higher level, a little bit later, let's say at the age of 7, 8, you start working by groups. You know, the groups with kind of level are together, another group with little bit lower level together. So you make the groups to make the things works the proper way, because the way that the players with certain level practice is not the same with the players with much lower level, no? So it was about organization, was about have the right balance between practicing the proper way and having fun, because at that age is the most important thing, I think, from my point of view, is to enjoy more than the rest of the things. You can't pretend to be professional when you're practicing in your club at the age of 6 or 7. The only thing that you can pretend is try to improve and have the right coaches and the right people to help you to improve your skills on tennis, but the rest of the day is about having fun, no? And that's what happened there. We had a good coach like Tony and another group of coaches that were helpful, and then we spent there plenty of hours playing football, playing ping pong, having fun, and that was the main reason to spend almost a whole day there.
Rafa, do you remember any specific match in which concrete tactical decision completely changed the result in your favor? What did you learn from that experience? And on the opposite side, was there any rival who, being at first much inferior to you, managed to find a tactical way to hurt you and make the match difficult?
If we talk about early stages of my career, maybe in 2006, the final of Dubai against Roger, he was playing unbelievable. He just destroyed me on the first set. I was not able to do anything. And then in the second set, I just started to hit, doesn't matter, the ball. I just tried to hit the ball against his backhand and try to just be repetitive on that shot, because when he was able to touch the forehand, it was very difficult to come back to the point in a control position, no? So in tennis, the small adjustments tactically that you can make can have a very big impact, but the margin that you have during the match to make changes is not a lot. So you need to be flexible. You need to be ready to make decisions quick, and that's why it's so important to understand what's going on and to have the mind ready to analyze the proper way what's going on. if you get too frustrated, if you get too excited sometimes, it's difficult to have the right analysis about what's happening on the match. So it's important to be under emotional control to be able to make the right decisions during the match, and that's it. And that works when the things are not working well or when the things are working very well, because you need to be not frustrated when or not too much frustrated when the things are not going well, to make the right decisions about what you have to do to try to change the dynamic of the match. And when the things are going well, don't be too confident or too excited, to keep doing what you are doing well. And sometimes, and normally happens when you are winning in a match in the professional tour against good players, when you are winning a match, the opponent tries to do things, tries to change the dynamic of the match. And you need to be all the time ready to understand what's going on and to decide the proper way to keep going the way that you were going before. So it's about have the right mental balance in every single moment. And the only way to find that on the matches is practice that every single day on your practice sessions.
Hi, Rafa. Your serves and returns have evolved with many changes throughout your career. How important is it to you to structure the point starting from the first shots after the serve and return? How did you specifically work on this aspect in your training? How much time did you dedicate to it? And which routines do you remember as the most effective to improve in these initial phases of the point?
Okay. The tennis, as every sport, is changing and evolving all the time. So when I arrived on the tour, when I was 16, the way that most of the players played this sport is different about the way that the players plays in the last stages of my career, 3-4 years ago. Before, the players had the mentality to prepare a little bit more the points, so you had more time to apply the way that you want to play. Later in my career, the way that the players are playing is much more aggressive, so they don't give you a lot of time to think. So when that happens, the first shots of every point are critical. If you don't serve and return well, it's very difficult to be successful today in the world of tennis. And when you serve, you need to be ready for the next ball. And the way that you receive these first two balls on every single point gonna make a big difference on your chances of having success or not. So you can practice that, of course. Especially later in my career, I was practicing a lot serves and first ball and return plus first ball. Because when you see matches on TV and you see the average shots that the points have per point are not many. So that shows you how important it is to be good in these first 2-3 shots of every single point. And you have to dedicate time to that, of course. But always, if you see it in perspective, everybody now is playing a little bit faster and gives you less chances to prepare the point the proper way. Even today, knowing that, the best players still the players who have control on the ball. The best players of the world are the players who keep feeling the ball and the players who are ready to play long rallies when they need it. They are good on the other stages of the match, in the first two steps, in the first two shots of every point. Of course, they are very good. If not, it's impossible. But at the same time, if you see Carlos, if you see Sinner, if you see Novak, Zverev, all of these guys, they are good returning, they are good serving, but they are good and very good playing shots from the baseline. They really feel the ball and they can play long points with good control. So still today, knowing that the sport is played much faster than before, the best players are still the players who have control on his shots and feeling on the ball. So that's why it's important to work on these first shots of the point, 100%, but still important to keep having the right control of the ball on your racket.
Good afternoon, Rafa. In the many Grand Slam tournaments where you shared competition with WTA players, what similarities and differences do you observe between the ATP and WTA circuits? And in that exchange, what lessons do you think male players could learn from female players? And in turn, what could female players learn from male players?
It's not an easy answer because even if we play the same tournaments, we share the courts, but we don't play. Normally, we don't practice between us. So, in some ways, it's like different tournaments played in the same place. But of course, that since a while we are sharing most of the tournaments of the year. From my point of view, male players are playing now a little bit the way that the female player plays. Female players normally they play aggressive. They go for every shot. I really believe that. I mean, the male players normally have a better ability to move faster, but the female players normally they are very clear about how they play. You know, they go for the shots since the first ball. I think they are very aggressive on the return. They try to make the points shorter. I think because of they don't have the ability to move that well. Some of them, they go big since the beginning, no? And I feel that the ATP players, you know, the male players are now playing a little bit more that way. So it's always important to look around, to observe the different tours, and of course you can learn from each other. No one is perfect. The male tour is not perfect. The female tour is not perfect. Players have room to be better. I think the females can learn from the male players about changing a little bit more the dynamic of the points. Most of the girls, I think, they play more equal. You know, they don't use that much. Just a few girls use the slice backhand, change the dynamic on the points. And it's something that I really believe that when arrive a girl that is able to do that and change the rhythm of the point and move well, gonna have a huge advantage. Of course, it's very difficult to compete sometimes when you play against a player like Sabalenka, that she's going big on every shot. She can serve like a male, so it's difficult to compete against that. But with variation and knowing that the movement can be not that perfect, you know, you can find a way to compete against these big shots with the proper tactics and the proper skills, no? And as I said before, the male can learn about how the girls have very clear how they play the points since the beginning.
What do you think is the most important part of training for a young player that wants to go pro in the upcoming years?
First of all, I think is the attitude. You know, of course, have the right people next to you. It's important trust in the coaches that are working with you. Doesn't matter how good you are, the coach gonna know better than yourself the things that you need to improve or the things that you need to do in your daily basis. I put you my personal example. I was very good when I was a kid. I was the best or the second best in the world and being on the tour at very early age. But I always respected and followed the instructions about my coaches, and not only my uncle, that I had a huge respect. The rest of the coaches that I had with me at the young age, and I don't speak about coaches that I had later on my career, but at my younger age, I didn't have the chance to go to an academy like this one, but I was practicing on the government local center in Palma, and I was practicing with different coaches, no? And I always respected the coaches, every single coach, and trying to follow what they told to me, because at the end, when people sometimes is wrong, it's important to have your structure next to you, but receive inputs from different people and from different coaches who wants the best for you is not at all negative. At the end, you try things, and some things that you hear from people who are not in your diary basis, but observe you from the side, can have a positive impact on you. So I was always ready to listen people and to take things, try things. Sometimes that things works, sometimes don't. But I had always the open mind to listen to people who wanted the best for me. And these people were not John McEnroe or Carlos Moya, were coaches from Mallorca, but they had passion for sport. And sometimes the best coaches don't need to be an amazing name. Coaches who are lowest profiles, they can be the best coaches for you guys. Because at the end, these big names, they have a lot of things in their mind, they had a lot of success, but they are not ready to be 100% committed with the diary work that you need to have next to you. And that's why I always say the same. When I was a kid, I never had these big names because, let's say my uncle, that is Tony Nadal. Now, of course, it's a big name because he achieved what he achieved being my coach. But when I started with my uncle was the coach of the Club Tennis Manacor, a city of 50,000 or 40,000 people at that moment. So he was nobody in the world of tennis, but he was very passionate and he knew about tennis. And Tony Colom, the same. And many others that was next to me. And people sometimes, and families or agents sometimes get confused about believing that for the kids at your age, it's so important to have big names next to you. I don't think they are right. It's important to have people next to you that they are passionate and they want the best for you. And tennis is not like going to the moon. It's not that difficult. Tennis is a simple sport, and what you need to have is people who really know about the sport, who really are passionate about the sport, and people who are committed on your improvement in the diary basis. Then you can have some outside advisors that can be helpful, like a mentor, a bigger name. But in your diary basis, for my son, if my son wanted to play tennis, I didn't want a big name for my son. I want a person who is passionate and who works diary with a lot of commitment.
Hello, Rafa. You're known for your calmness on court, and what do you feel inside when things are not going your way? Do you have an inner dialogue that helped you regain control?
When I was a kid, when I was missing a ball, my uncle always asked me, "Why did you miss that ball?" And that creates an effect about be able to correct myself, to have the ability to understand why I missed that ball and analyze what I had to do to don't miss the next one. So I think it's important to be smart enough to listen to others. Sometimes people who are arrogant, they are not humble enough to listen to people who are next to them. And that's the key of the success at the end, because even the highest and the best talents in the world had a team next to them, and it's important to let them help you. I was ready to let the people who were next to me help me all the time, and that's why I was not frustrated when the things were not my way. When the things were not going my way, I was, as I said before in the other answer, I was ready to analyze what's going on. I was ready to try things to change the dynamic of the match. If you go frustrated, it's very difficult to have the possibility to find a solution. So I was always is a strong word, but 99% of the days practicing with a positive attitude, with the right mentality, and accepting the mistakes, accepting that the things are not going always well. Things goes the perfect way, just very few days in a year. Just a few days in a year, you feel the ball fantastic. Rest of the days, sometimes you feel the ball normal, sometimes you feel the ball bad, and sometimes terrible. And even the best players went through that process. But it's the way that you approach that challenge and that tough moments define how you're going to react in the toughest moments that are the competition. So if you practice that, you accept that on the practice stages, then if you are able to solve these problems on your practice daily basis, then when arrive the most important moments that are the competition, you are used to face all these issues, and that makes a big difference on the final result.
Hello, Rafa.
Hello.
My name is Mila, and I'd like to know, what did your recovery routine look like after a tough match or training session, and which parts of you do you think is the most important for players like us?
You are very young. I mean, you need to follow what the physiotherapist, the physical trainers, and coaches tells to you. When I was a kid like you, I only had my coach. You know, you are lucky that you have a lot of people next to you that are going to help you with nutrition, with psychologists, with with all these issues that are going to make the things a little bit easier for you. You know, my recovery was go back home, study, and sleep, do the homework, and come back the next day and practice. You know, that was the recovery that I had in your age. Later on my career, when you are professional and when you have better knowledge and when you dedicate 100% to that, after the tough battles, long matches, my recovery will be always, sometimes at the beginning I will do some ice massage, you know, so ice on the legs with cream. Then I'm gonna be on the sometimes cryotherapy, if we had the machine on the tournaments, sometimes in very cold water for a while, and then a good session of stretching. I like it to do a stretching, not a straight after the match. I like it to do it a few hours later. Normally, it's true that when you are on the tour, normally you don't have the possibility to do all these things straight away because you have to do media. But even if I was able to control that, I prefer to stretch later on. But normally, my routine is going out of the court. I was doing around 10 to 15 minutes of bicycle. Then I was going to the locker room, do some massage with ice. Then I was doing sometimes ice baths. Then going to the media. Then going back to the hotel and do some treatment with my physio. And of course, all the liquids, all the recovery drinks that I needed during the whole night.
Hello, Rafa. What is the most valuable life lesson you've learned from tennis, and how does this help you in your everyday life when you're not on court or in the spotlight?
I don't know. I mean, I can't give you the more valuable thing that I learned from tennis. I think I learned a lot. I developed as a human being, traveling, knowing different cultures, learning from my rivals, from my friends, from my coaches, from the people that I was able to meet around the world since I was a small kid, and learning how to respect every single aspect of this life. You know, at the end, grow with the sport values. I think helps you to develop in a positive way as a person. And being normally in the world of sport is because you are around a positive atmosphere that's gonna help you to grow in every single way. No, so tennis give me the possibility to have amazing experiences, to know amazing places, and to meet amazing people. And not because that people are famous or important, because that people have stories, and you learn from the stories of the people. And you learn how to understand better this world that sometimes is complicated, and sometimes we see the world just from one perspective, you know. And when we analyze things that are happening on the world, if you do not understand different realities that this world have, it's always easy to judge that from just one perspective. So most important thing that I learned thanks to all these experiences is sometimes it's not one good, one bad, you know. Different realities, different cultures, different understandings of life, and at the end is learn how to respect each other even if you think different. And that makes our life much better. Learn how to respect each other, even if we have different ideas or different thoughts.
Your career is an example of physical resilience. What has been the greatest learning in prevention and physical preparation that allowed you to stay at the top for so many years?
Well, I don't know if I prevent myself very well because I had plenty of injuries, to be honest. But I think I was quite professional on doing things. So my feeling is if I was not ready to follow what the doctors told me, what the physio told me, what my physical trainer told me, how long will be my career? You know, having all these issues, even following the instructions, I face it. A lot of injuries, a lot of physical problems. But following their instructions and accepting the challenge with the right attitude, with the right discipline, and with the right working ethic, I was able to overcome all these situations, you know, and I was able to have a much longer career than what I ever thought, or even the people who are next to me thought that I will have. At the end, I started when I was 15, 16 on the professional tour. A lot of people said that I had a very physical style of playing, and I will not have a very long career. And I was listening that all the time, and I thought maybe it's true. You know, that's the truth. But you know, improve in all aspects, like the nutrition that have been a challenge for me, because now you know much more about nutrition than when I was a kid. Now everybody have access to this new world that is nutrition. But for us, when we were kids, we don't have all this information. So it's always easier to interiorize all these things when you grow with that, not when you have to learn about that later on your life. So that's a work that I had to went through, and I did it later on my career. But at the same time, I was able to keep the trust on the people who worked with me. Doesn't matter sometimes if the things were not going the proper way. I was ready to not find excuses on the others, just be autocritic enough to accept that when the things were not going the way that I wanted, was not the problem of the coach, the physio, or the physical trainer. It was my fault. And when I got injured, it's not their fault. I got injured. So what they can do is help me to recover as fast as possible, no, and help me in all that ways. And having people next to me that become friends, but at the same time professionals that I respected, become not only a professional relationship, become a personal relationship, and that helps to go through all these tough moments together with the trust that everybody wants the best for the other. And that's how I built my career, how I built my long career, and how I hold the passion and the love for the game, and how I hold the determination to keep going even if I faced tough moments, because of the education that I received when I was a kid, but at the same time because I had the right people next to me.
Even though you're not a professional golfer, you have reached a handicap of 0 and enjoy the process of learning, improving, and competing recreationally. If you draw a parallel with tennis, what advice would you give to a player who starts late so they can progress and at the same time enjoy the journey, understanding that, just like in golf, patience, consistency, and motivation are key to advancing with confidence and security?
Well, I think in this life, the most important thing is feel that you are improving. You know, doesn't matter if your goal is becoming a professional or becoming as good as possible like an amateur. You know, at the end is doing what you are doing is try your best to be better and to be as good as possible, as good as you can. You know, and For me, even when I play a football match here, when I go to play a golf match, I understand the sport that way. I don't have enough fun if I go to play golf and I don't try to be as good as possible. And I know that I am a bad golfer. I know I don't gonna have ever the chance to be a good golfer. But I love the process of trying to be as good as possible. So it's the same in any sport. It's the same in anything in life. It's try to enjoy the process of becoming better and better, even if you know that you don't going to be a superstar on that. Because at the end, it's about the personal satisfaction that you have in all that process. You know, that's more than titles, more than achievements. It's about have the personal satisfaction of what you did. And at the end, the title is feel that you move it forward by yourself. At the end, that's the strongest feeling that you can find on this world, more than any title. You know, the titles reflects what you did in your diary basis, but that's what the titles don't make you feel super happy. What makes you feel happy is all the things that you went through to achieve that title. So you don't need to achieve titles to have that feeling. You need to achieve the best improvement possible for yourself, and you're going to have the same feeling than winning titles.
Hello, Rafa. What is your advice for a 15 or 14-year-old tennis player who is starting to compete internationally and dreams of becoming a professional tennis player?
My advice is go on court every single day with a goal of being better, you know, with a goal of improve something, and don't find excuses to don't give your best every single day, because in this world you are always can find excuses to don't give your best. Every day something can happen, and it's easy to find excuses. Everybody can have an excuse, but at the end it's just a personal excuse to don't accept that for some reason you are not doing the things that you need to do to be better and better. So be honest with yourself, have the right determination to go on court with the clear goals. As I said a couple of times today, be humble enough to listen the people who is next to you, follow what they say, and then at the end you're gonna have to make your own decisions. But things that you don't see because you are inside, people from outside, they see it much better than you that you are inside. So it's important to have confidence and respect for the people who are next to you. I want the best and want the best for you. That's it. It's simple. Attitude, determination, working ethic, humble enough, and trust on the people who wants the best for you.
Thank you.
The words are easy. The result is much more difficult.
Hello, Rafa. What are your basic nutrition, supplementation, and hydration routines that you consider essential before, during, and after a high-demand match? And additionally, how do you apply those same habits in your daily life as an elite athlete? And with the experience you have now, what things would you change if you were to start your sports career again?
You know what? I become one of the best players of the world, or one of the best players of the history of this game, tennis, without doing all these kind of things. You know, that shows you that it's not decisive. Nothing is 100% decisive, to be honest. But everything helps. You know, as I said before, when I was a kid, I was not taking supplements. I was not drinking minerals, or I don't know how to say, but during the matches, or after the matches, or before the matches. Why? Because we didn't have that knowledge in that age, and that didn't affect me to become one of the best players of the world, to be honest. But if I knew that things will be better, probably yes. I will not become a better tennis player. Probably I will not be a better tennis player having that, but probably I will be healthier. Probably my body will be able to have less injuries. That's true. So sometimes when you do things, and even if you don't feel the result immediately, that don't say that the thing that you are doing is not working. You know, because a lot of things that you do today is not because going to work and going to make the difference tomorrow. It's because you invest on things that are going to make the difference sometimes in 3 months, sometimes in 6 months, sometimes in 1 year, or sometimes in 5 years. But have the proper habits, the right habits, life positive habits can make the difference. And the most important thing in this life, more than any sport, is the health. And the health is the key of this life, because the rest of the things, you can fix it, you can work on it. But health is critical. If you don't have health, the rest of the things doesn't matter, because without health, you cannot achieve anything in this life. So have the right habits, make a huge difference on your daily life basis. And that's the advice that I will tell you. It's not about becoming a better tennis player, doing the right supplementation, having the proper nutrition routine. That's gonna have like this impact on tennis. That's the truth. But on your life can have a much bigger positive impact. So I recommend to do the things that the people who know what you need to eat, or what you need to be supplemented during, before and after the matches, follow that instructions. I discovered later on my career, but I was following. When I had the possibility to know about all these kind of things, I followed. I think they have a tight schedule than me. They have to go to school now. So, so thank you very much, guys. All the best. Thank you.